Welcome one and all to Umami Manga. I'm one of your hosts, Petter, and with me I got my co-host, James.
Hello.
And today we're talking about Volume 3 of To Your Eternity. As I said at the end of the previous volume discussion, this one and the next one are my two favorite volumes in this whole series, at least out of the 12 that I have read so far. And so I was very happy to reread this one. I hadn't actually read this book since the first time I read it, so I had a lot of fun rereading it. Or would you like to give some general thoughts, like just initially on the volume?
I love this volume. Like, this was so good.
Sweet.
Volume 2 was a step up for me as well. As much as I loved the first chapter, I thought Volume 2 just had a lot more of what I enjoy, and I felt like I understood where the story was going. But this Volume 3 introduces these new characters so well and makes you invested in their trials, their struggles, that I was hooked. And as I was going through chapters, it's like, oh, I only have this many more chapters? No, until the volume is over. No, come on, let there be more. And yeah, so I'm excited to talk about it, but it was very enjoyable.
I'm so happy to hear that. It was when I read, because I started reading these chapters online, and it was when I got to this part of the story. It was like, around these chapters in this book that I decided I have to start buying these volumes. That's how it was for me. So since this book, I've been buying the volumes. I mean, I have all of them.
Totally understandable. Totally understandable.
Yeah. And also, one quick thing before we get into talking about the characters. Today, as I was recording, was the day when the first Gugu chapter of the anime released. So basically, the beginning of this volume was literally just today covered in the anime, and I've already seen the episode twice. I love it. And so I guess going through the characters like we usually do, and as usual, let's start with Fushi. Since his battle with the Knocker, which we now have a name for in the previous book, he is now afraid of the forest, which makes sense, to be fair.
It does. That thing was pretty horrifying.
Yeah.
And even in this volume was even more horrifying in some ways, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about him being afraid of the forest is that it shows, again, his progression, where he's becoming aware of things that, or he's gaining these feelings that are very human, or very, I guess, living. Animals fear things as well. So it's interesting that he's able to recognize that and just start to feel those things that before he probably wouldn't have either been able to articulate or even really understand why there would be a reason to fear.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we do learn that he can indeed replicate any item that inflicts some kind of stimulus on him, but not fire.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Like, Gugu kind of did some experiments on him, which was, you could think of what you want about that. I mean, he did feel bad about it afterward. He did apologize about it eventually, but we did learn that, as far as it seems anyway, Fushi cannot create fire for some reason.
Yeah, I wonder why that is. I wonder if it has something to do with the elemental thing of it all.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Going along with that, he can recreate food.
Yeah.
And all sorts of weapons. So it's not just pain that stimulates, or that he's able to, that gives him the stimulus that he needs. It's also things that just he's able to recall, his memory.
Yeah.
And even the narrator, it says eventually that he'll be able to recall things even with the slightest of memories, slightest of stimuli. But at this point, it needs to be bigger.
Precisely.
So,
yeah.
I thought it was interesting, the things that he was able to show up, or he was able to produce. The fruit, and that was obviously very important with him in March.
Yeah.
The fish head.
Right.
Then,
yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
But then also the dongo that was on the pointy stick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the only reason I could think that him be able to do that was because he hurt himself when he was eating that.
Precisely. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting, and I also loved like Fushi's reactions when he like learned that he could create all of these things. It
Yeah.
was like such like he was so surprised himself, like, oh my god, well, I can make all these things. He was like so happy and like just in awe about it. It was so fun to see that. Yeah, it's like we're learning about him at the same pace that he's learning about himself, and I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah.
And another rather kind of human thing about him that we got from this volume is he realizes that he like after having done cooking and cleaning and working in the field, especially after Gugu left, he kind of realizes that he's pretty bad at all of that, and so he actually asks for help. He asks to be taught how to do it,
Hmm.
and so he goes out to find Gugu so that he can get his help to grow up.
Yeah. Needs Gugu's help to grow up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this volume was almost like him as a young child
Yeah.
learning how, learning how to do things. Uh, not learning like, crawling or walking or how to eat, but more like doing the everyday things that an adult would do.
Mhm.
And so he needs in this case an older brother to kind of teach him that
Yeah.
in a way. Um, and then at the very end of the volume, we see that he's starting to grow kind of stubble, right?
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
so it makes me think that he's gone from being a child to maybe maturing a little bit, growing into maturity. Like
Mm.
at least his mental state, instead of being a naive child, he's more of a young adult or well, a teenager maybe.
Right.
So it's
Mm.
it's interesting. I wonder if that kind of observation will be had during the rest of the story, or is that just something that was in this volume?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I guess we'll see. Regardless, it's a really like interesting little thing, though. I think with how, I guess the first book he was barely anything really, and then in the second one he
Mm-hmm.
was like an infant sort of with having March as his mother, and then in this one he's
Mm-hmm.
growing up, being seeming a little bit older, learning a little bit more, and having Gugu as a brother. It's beautiful, I think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there is one point in this story where he sees Rean's dog Mir, and he calls it Johan after
Mm.
as he was called when he was in canine form by the boy. I thought that was a really nice little thing, like as if he connects that name to that kind of a creature, basically.
Right. I guess that was his stimulus, kind of, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, when he sees that dog, he still says the name. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That is. Yeah. That was kind of. It's kind of sad,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like it's nice to see him finally be able to recall or go back into his memory and pull things and be able to make sense of it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. He learned so much in this volume. Like they had like a discussion about death.
Right? Yeah, death. That was a big one too, because
Mm.
yeah, he didn't understand that, which is kind of surprising. But of course he wouldn't though, because
Right.
there's so much he doesn't know.
Yeah. I thought it was clever of him near the end of the volume where he he turned into March and like in order to distract the woman that was chasing after Rean. I thought that was a really clever move because I mean he could have easily turned into like the wolf or the bear and just scared her off.
Right.
But this was more of a subtle kind of like a cleverer way to do it.
It really was. it, it, yeah, it was pretty cunning. Like,
Yeah, right?
and, and also as a reader, you're just like, oh man, like, March is dead, and you bring this
Yeah.
up again. I don't know,
Mm.
with the wound and everything, but no, it was pretty clever of him.
Yeah.
Something that going back to something you were saying earlier
Hmm?
with him and Gugu and their kind of experimentations on him. it seems like to me, and correct me if you think differently,
Huh?
that Fushi got his feelings hurt
Y-
during that.
yes, yes.
And you know, at first he just kind of went along with it, but you know, after a bit he felt kind of maybe a little bit betrayed, and that's why they had a little bit of fight. And so I like the fact that he didn't understand how or what he was feeling or what he needed,
Hmm.
and so he just kind of I don't know. It's hard for me to describe, but when you have feelings but you don't know how to express yourself, sometimes I think people just don't acknowledge it or don't talk to the person that hurt their feelings or whatever. And so he
Hmm.
kind of isolated himself in that way. And
Right.
I also wondered if he contemplated running away, not running away, but just leaving after that point. Because
Hmm.
he walks out and kind of stares out into the forest like he was thinking about it.
Yeah.
But maybe he was so afraid. He's like, nah, man, I'm just gonna live as a wolf now or something. I don't know. I really
Right.
don't. I really didn't understand that part entirely, but that's what I kind of interpreted as.
Right. No, I agree. I think he definitely got in some way upset over what Gugu did to him. Definitely. I mean, you can see it in his face in that
Hmm.
scene. But at the same time, I don't think it got so bad to the point where he would leave. I mean, maybe he would if he wasn't afraid of the forest. That was a good point, perhaps. But regardless, he was able to get over that relatively easily, like all things
Mm-hmm.
considered.
Yeah.
And he had Pioran was there, someone who he knew at this point had like created a bond with, and I think he still felt like he had some kind of reason to stick around.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, when he sees Gugu run off and then he just goes back to sleep, it's probably like it's not my problem, or it's probably like kind of an indifference at that point.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure if he at that point really has it in him to understand feeling mad at someone. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't know. Maybe it's just something he doesn't know what to do with, and he doesn't understand it exactly, and eventually he feels better about it.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to get at,
Right, right.
but for some reason I couldn't express.
It's all good. It's all good. It was also sweet to see him get like really mad with Gugu during the battle with the Knocker, uh,
Yeah.
where like cause it really shows how much he cares about Gugu at that point. It's like a parent like shouting at their child for doing something dangerous, where like that doesn't mean that they're mad at their child. It means that they care about their child. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of anger, and I thought that was really nice to see so passionately from Fushi.
Yeah. And I think my favorite example of that is when he tells him, "If you come back, I'll bite you,"
Yeah.
and
No.
then he does bite him when he comes back,
Yeah.
which is was really nice.
I love that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that goes to the bond that they share,
Hmm.
but also that everyone at that what do you call it's not even a hut house
Yeah.
tower
Tower,
I don't
so
know what you
yeah,
call it.
whatever. Yeah.
Everyone there is kind of a strange but close family,
Hmm.
and I really like that, and I think it's good for Fushi's growth.
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally. And more about the battle with the knocker at the end there, related to Fushi, that we learned that even if he's defeated by a knocker, he will still be able to come back if that knocker is defeated later on by somebody else.
Yeah.
So even if all of his forms are defeated, he there's still a chance for him to return, and so he did come back in his original form as the Rock,
Mm-hmm.
there after Gugu defeated the Knocker. And I think, well, we have talked about, I think, on both our previous discussions about what does happen if he transforms into, or if he takes the form again of something without consciousness. And it seems like the implication here was that he was stuck in that form until the beholder, which I think we're going to call him the beholder, the narrator.
Okay.
We're going to call him the beholder because this is a small tangent, but on the first page basically of volume 4, this isn't a spoiler because it's like the first page has a little character index.
Ah,
where he is referred to as the Beholder.
gotcha.
So that's what we're calling him from now on. Anyway, he touched the rock.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, and then when he did that, he turned into the wolf. So into one of the forms that has consciousness. So I think that was necessary. I think if he hadn't, he wouldn't have been able to leave the rock form until maybe like many, 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 many years until he like gets some kind of stimulus, similarly as he did the first time.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think he sort of helped Fushi out by touching him there, as far as I could read that.
Yeah, that I mean that's how I read it. It's interesting that the touch would awaken all those memories and everything, those forms back within him. And I'll admit it is a little like hard to understand that part, but I just don't think too much about it.
Right, it's very fantasy. Like I feel like whenever the Beholder is involved, it becomes even more fantasy-like kind of
Right.
than it is usually. I mean, it's all. I mean, the main character is super fantasy, so I don't know. But yeah, yeah. And also speaking about the Beholder, near the end of the book, when Fushi is talking to the Beholder outside the house, it's like shortly before the time skip.
Yeah.
I think Fushi expresses some even more very human-like feelings when he wants to stay with Gugu, even though the Beholder heeds him not to stay in one place. So I thought that was really nice, since he had really built up that bond, that brotherly bond with Gugu at that point, and he didn't want to leave him.
Yeah. It was nice. And it's interesting that the beholder didn't say you'll regret it or anything like that. He says that's also acceptable. So
Right. Yeah.
I guess it shows that one Fushi does kind of have his freedom of choice in that sense to do what he wants.
Hmm.
But I think it also shows that no matter where he is, he's probably going to gain some sort of stimuli that will help. Although maybe the beholder knows what's going to happen in in the future, potentially.
I don't think he does actually,
Oh, okay.
because and this is something I was gonna mention later on about the Beholder, but I'll mention it now
Oh,
because
sorry.
no, I mean because the discussion brought us here. So there is one point, like right before the battle with the Knocker, the Beholder comes in and he says that he didn't think, or he says it didn't seem like Fushi would make it out of that battle
That's true.
because the enemy had the upper hand in two different ways, and he was like the way he worded it, it seemed like he was pretty sure that Fushi wouldn't make it back to the house after that battle,
Yeah, that's true.
and he turned out to be wrong about that because of Gugu.
Maybe he has strong predictability. Like he's able to
Maybe.
just kind of look at the situation and maybe he just knows Fushi so well that he feels like he can make an accurate assumption.
That's
But
possible.
when it comes to outside parties, maybe he's not able to correctly predict that.
Right. Yeah. Could be.
But anyway.
Could be. Do you have anything more on Fushi?
Yeah, just want to hear your thoughts on one thing about he notices that Gugu has pain in his heart when he's talking about Rean.
Yeah.
Now, is it the pain that he's noticing, or is it just a feeling in general? Like, is he able to touch on other feelings, or is it still just pain?
Right. We talked about this last time about whether it's only pain or if it's other kinds of emotions too. And I also thought of it when like during that same scene. I thought about that, and I guess it's hard to say because he does refer to it as pain.
Yeah.
Even though of course that kind of pain is very different from like a
Very
wound or
different.
like being pierced by a spear or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Of course. So I don't know. I guess at this point the only thing we can say with certainty is that he can feel pain of various sorts in people. But other than that, I guess we can't know more for sure.
Okay,
I guess.
that's fair. And I think that's all I have on him.
All right then. Then I want to talk about Gugu, my boy.
Gosh, I really like this kid.
Yes.
Like, or just his story. This character is just so well written,
Right?
and
Oh,
yeah, she does a great job.
yeah. Like Gugu is my favorite character in this entire series. Like
He's my favorite character right now.
hands
Yeah,
down, sweet. I'm happy to hear it.
I'm right there with you.
Awesome. So right off the bat, kind of we learn that he's a boy with a crush on a girl who he sees on the market sometimes, and but he appears to be too shy to kind of approach her. But and and he doesn't even know her name at the start there. But and he has his first interaction with her right before he's abandoned by his brother, which is like the first big turning point in his life, where when his brother just disappears on him.
With all the money.
Yeah, took all the money and up and left. And Gugu asks himself, I think at least 3 points throughout the volume, why am I me? Which is because at that point in his life, when he was, well, I think during the major portion of the volume, he didn't like himself and he didn't like his life.
Right.
And I think what's awesome about this volume is that after the time skip, at the end of the volume, Gugu has a much more positive outlook on life in general. So like this volume actually has a positive ending, like a happy ending, which I think is really nice in this series because I feel like both of the previous books didn't have too happy of an ending, really.
Yeah.
But this one totally did, I think. So that
I
was
agree.
that was really sweet. And something which I don't know if I'm digging too deep in this, but I thought some more about that quote, like, or that question, why am I me? And in regards to Gugu, kind of, and how it relates to him. And he questions like, why wasn't I born, or I wish I was born in that rich house where I can eat and have people that care about me and stuff like that. And so I wonder if that's kind of him questioning the concept of birthright, or at the very least that the story around him deals a lot with class differences. I think that's at least to that extent.
I think, yeah.
Right.
That's a possibility.
Because like when Gugu had just saved Rean from the log, and he got hit by the log, and when he's lying there, he hears Rean's parents or her servants or whoever the people there were, and they're all freaking out over Rean having been injured, but it was like such a minor injury, and but everyone's freaking out, everyone's coming together to help her. Meanwhile, no one is giving a damn about the poor homeless little boy who just fell off a cliff and had a log smash his face.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
oh my gosh.
That's one of those things that I think really goes to show like the class difference in a sense, where I mean, sure, they might not have actually seen him. In fact, they probably didn't.
I think they didn't.
Right. But regardless, it shows how, well, if you are from that kind of background that Rean is from, you are bound to have people around you that care about you, or at least in some way, and that are there to take care of you. But Gugu, coming from such a low class, like homeless, and has at that point no family at all anymore, he doesn't have anyone to care about him even in the slightest. And yeah. So that's why I brought up like the kind of the class differences in relation to his story, at least in the early parts of it.
I could definitely see that being maybe a theme that carries on into the next volume potentially, especially since Rean is definitely high class,
right,
high society, and and I think you'd still classify Gugu as poverty.
Oh yeah.
So, there is that huge difference between them. So that might be a sort of obstacle that maybe is in both of their ways, especially in Gugu's way. And I have a few other theories about maybe how that class system could come into play, but I'll say that for a little bit later.
All right, okay.
But you do bring a good point with all that, and something. Even though I have those theories, it wasn't something that I had really thought about being a theme in his story, but I do think that definitely plays a part in it.
Right.
Well, one thing that I took away from it was that he kind of regrets wishing to have a different life.
Right.
Because he got what he wished for, and that ended up being, obviously not what he wanted.
Yeah.
Pretty tragic for him. But even despite that, he's able to look at himself and say, I am me, and I'm happy with that at the end of the volume.
Exactly.
And so I guess it's just accepting your circumstances as they kind of say in the beginning. I think it was worded a little differently, but accepting your circumstances, but like living in those circumstances and just being the best who you are, even though you have a little scar on your arm or your face is brutally messed up.
Right. Yeah, like
You know?
exactly. I think what you were referring to was when he said that he doesn't care about his own circumstances anymore.
Yes, that's it.
And Rean says the same thing later on as well, which was
Right.
which was really nice.
One of the things I took away from Gugu's character is that he is a very kind-hearted individual,
Yeah.
and you can see it from throughout his story when he's sharing like the steamed bun with the dog. What was the dog's name?
Mir.
Mir.
Mm. Yeah.
And when he gave the ring to his traitorous brother.
Yeah.
You know, like you could argue that that was a bit of maybe self-pity and him feeling sorry for himself by giving the ring to him. But it was I think it was also him just seeing his brother, someone he used to care about so much, just like that, and just feeling pity and love for him, so he gave him the ring.
Yeah.
And so to me that shows what an amazing person he is, even despite all the terrible things he was going through at the time.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and he's a great cook. A fantastic cook, apparently. Like, better than Rean's family's private
I
cooks.
know, that was so great.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be prideful about that one.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally. I would love to taste his cooking sometime. Obviously, I can't. but hey,
Dude, totally.
I can dream. And another thing that he's supposedly really good at, or from what we could see, is throwing spears. Because he threw one spear in this book, and that was like a bullseye.
Yeah, right in the forehead.
That was such a good
remember
throw.
That was amazing.
Right?
That was not something that I knew he could do.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Maybe that's just like a hidden talent.
Right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, he had started to kind of train his body at that point, so I don't know if one of the exercises he did was some kind of throwing exercise, maybe. Possibly.
Yeah, but that was only like, maybe a month had passed.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. Not. Yeah, that's true. It wasn't very long. That's.
Right.
He said he's probably just natural.
Yeah, he could very well be. I know we already brought it up, but the log smashing his face, honestly, that shocked me. I knew something bad was going to happen just because that's the nature of this story, but I did not expect the log to smash his face and leave his face horribly disfigured, or basically take off his entire nose.
Yeah.
Like that was so shocking to me. So to see like him lying there with the log on his face was just, yeah, it was shocking.
Yeah, dude, I thought he was dead the first time I saw that. Like,
yeah,
when I read it the first time, I was like, oh shit, okay,
yeah.
He died, I guess. Glad he didn't.
Oh yeah, me too. But man, it was intense, and it definitely caught my attention. Even though like I was really invested in the little story he was telling at that point, that really hooked me.
Oh yeah.
And got me really into the story.
Totally. And we learn a little bit about his backstory from when he was very, very little. Like, I don't know if he's like 3 years old or something in these little flashbacks, but when he was a very little child, he and his brother worked for a family, and he thought that they were his family. Which is like such a sad realization.
That is so sad.
And ever since he kind of learned what actually was the case there, he has had this dream of having a family of his own and being surrounded by people that care about him, like genuinely. And
I mean, he kind of has that now, right?
Yeah, exactly. At this point, and especially now, especially after the time skip when he's actually content with that lifestyle.
Right.
I think he has been able to achieve that for sure. And I think one thing that really showed just how important family is to him was the scene where Fushi had relatively recently arrived there, and then Pioran and the booze man were talking about how they would use Fushi for their own gain, kind of. I mean, some of it was jokingly, but still, like that really ticked Gugu off, and he got so upset with them for even saying those sorts of things. And I think that really showed how important, or how much he values family. I thought that was really good.
I agree.
And also, when he first met Fushi, he tells him about his brother, and when he does, he seems to hold his brother in pretty high regard, even though he did betray him pretty badly. Um, and then later on, when he actually finds his brother in the alley, uh, at that point, he doesn't seem to think very well of his brother at all anymore.
He kind of held him in high regard, but he also gave a like right after that he kind of gave a snide remark or a kind of a pessimistic remark about maybe it's best you don't know your family or know your family or
Right.
have anybody that way they can't betray you or something along those lines.
Yeah, something about him feeling hopeless over maybe the not knowing what his brother is up to at this point. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. And it's also possible that when he said that to Fushi, it's possible that maybe it was just him trying to maintain some kind of positive outlook, even though he didn't necessarily feel that way entirely.
Yeah, that's how I took it, but
Mm.
I could be
No, I think that
misreading it.
it's perfectly possible, I think. And yeah, I think it was also really nice to see, like, having recently lost the only family he had, how
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to accept Fushi into the family, like, so openly, so willingly, pretty much right off the bat. And he started to view Fushi kind of as his little brother, and he starts to like Fushi a lot, like, very
Yeah.
quickly, like, and he feels like Fushi's presence, just having him around, will help him face kind of the boring life that he has ahead of him, or at least the way he
Mm-hmm.
feels at the time. So that's also like really nice how their bond started growing really
Right.
from the get go.
Right. And I think not, obviously we mentioned how important it was for Fushi to have Gugu kind of, treat him as a brother, but it
Mm,
was also important for Gugu, as he mentions in the volume,
yeah.
just for him to accept himself and to realize that even though he's had these horrible things happen to him, he's okay if he can accept that and just keep moving forward, I guess. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I really appreciate his attitude by the end. It's
Totally.
really good. And but at the same time, I understand why he was so frustrated with things and running out on the booze man and all them. Like it
Mm,
makes sense.
yeah.
I don't blame him and the
Oh yeah.
things he went through there. But my favorite moments for Gugu were one the scene in his in his tent with Fushi and kind of the fake out death,
Oh
which was great.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought because it was definitely trying to imply that he was going to pass away or something like that.
Right? Yeah, definitely
Um,
had that vibe.
it did, and then obviously Rean comes in and
Mm,
changes that. But
yeah.
it but that moment between them where he basically asks Fushi to turn into him when he dies.
Mm,
But all that discussion that they had in that moment was very good for his character, and I think for Fushi to learn as well.
yeah.
So I really like that moment. But my other one is the kind of understanding or getting to know each other better that Gugu and Rean had
Yes.
in like the next couple of chapters or so. It was so well done, so good,
Dude,
in my opinion. That
yes.
conversation.
Like
Oh,
their scene in the tent there, especially. You mean?
yeah,
Yeah, dude,
yeah. Well,
absolutely.
him hiding behind the tree
Right.
and everything. Yeah,
That was probably my favorite scene in this whole volume, between the two of them,
yeah.
because really,
Hmm.
like, throughout most of that scene, they were both acting like idiots. Like, they really were. Like, both of them were fucking dumb.
Yeah,
But still, in the end, they managed to walk out of the tent together on better terms than they had been on ever before, probably. And
yeah.
I think that's the second really big turning point for Gugu.
Hmm.
When, yeah, after having had that conversation with Rean. And I think it's a big moment for both of them. I think it's a huge moment for both of them.
Right. And same when he gives back the mask to Rean after they just ran out of town.
Hmm.
That moment as well. I guess you could say it's a continuation of that, but
Right.
the is really just help both of them both of their characters grow. I think in a very good way.
Hmm. But a little earlier there, uh, in the
Hmm.
book, we had this whole, again, it started growing up. We were the bond between Gugu and Fushi, was growing after they met. And then Rean showed up the first time at the shop, and
Mm-hmm.
that obviously made Gugu very happy
A
at first.
woman.
Well, and I mean, he already had a crush on her, and like that was like
Yeah.
it's like he was so happy to see her. But then it turns out that she liked Fushi, although I don't imagine that was a very deep kind of affection.
No.
She just saw him, and I guess she thought he looked cute.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of acted a little quirky, so that was interesting to a little girl like her, I guess. But anyway, that must have been so awfully conflicting for Gugu, having like this new brother figure in his life who he adores, and the girl that he has a massive crush on, and the whole thing that happens right there, that's gotta suck hard. And so
Yeah.
I don't blame him for going into that kind of depression that he did after that, where he just stops doing his chores and everything just feels awful for him for a while. I totally understand that.
Especially at that age.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And having gone through and lost his older brother already,
Yeah.
I guess he feels a little betrayed. Yeah, can't blame the kid.
Yeah. And then when he ran away and he met his old employer again, the guy that he and his brother had worked for before,
Ah, man.
he was such a nice guy. Like,
He was.
he really was. But his family, or some of his other family members weren't, so obviously that didn't work out. But the fact that he invited him to actually live with them as part of the family was fantastic. Like, that's amazing.
What a
An
good
amazing
guy.
gesture, yeah.
Jeez.
But yeah, sadly that didn't.
If only everyone could have a boss like that.
Right, dude, totally. He's like the best boss award. Like, that goes to him. Man. And also, kind of around that time, or after he saw his old boss the last time, he feels like without the mask, he can't stay human. So he decides to abandon his life as a human and throws the mask away, or at least for a while. And I guess that's his biggest down. That is really when he's at his lowest, I guess, in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone shuns him at that point in the story, and it's just awful.
Really is.
But yeah, then Fushi comes and Rean comes, and
Well, that's why Rean was so important. I mean, obviously Fushi was very important too, but Rean was so important for him because she was the first one to, even though she hasn't seen his face yet, technically, she's basically the first one to openly accept him, even if he is a monster, you know.
exactly,
I think that was obviously very important to him.
definitely, yeah, and to have him, or for him to have people that care about him that come
Yeah.
to get him back home,
Right.
that's what he always dreamed of having, and he has that now. And these two people, as you said, they both do this. They both care about him despite the monster side of him, or well, he's really not, but
No.
but despite all of that, and that's worth a lot.
Indeed.
And just a little other thing I had on him is that near the end of the book, during the Knocker battle, when he gets drunk, he confesses his love for Rean.
Yeah. I love it.
And I wonder
so
if
much.
he will have any recollection of that afterward, if he was too drunk to remember it.
I know Rean will. Rean will
Absolutely.
definitely remember that. There's no way she forgets that.
No.
I mean, I can't say how she feels one way or another, but there's no doubt in my mind she won't forget, or she won't remember that. Wait, there's no doubt that she won't forget that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Sometimes I don't understand what I'm saying, but
yeah.
I think that he was so hammered that I don't think he remembers that.
No, probably not. And the very last thing I just wanted to put a little bit of emphasis on that fact that he is ripped now after the time skip.
He is. Good night.
All that training paid off.
Big time. Muscle man.
Yeah. And yeah, he was able to get rid of that stomach, the boost stomach.
Oh, they did get rid of the stomach.
Well, I mean,
stomach.
it's still. I mean, he still has the organ.
Oh,
The
okay, yeah.
Alcohol organ, but thanks to being so muscly, that is what
It's
I
not
meant.
like protruding anymore.
Right,
Got
exactly.
it,
Yeah,
got it.
he's able to
Got it.
conceal it more, like with his muscles. Like it doesn't.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks good.
Yeah, he does. And I started questioning how old he was because before I thought he was like 10 or something, to be honest.
Yeah.
But 4 years and to be that big, it's like, well, maybe so now it seems like he's at least 16.
Right. I had the exact same feeling.
So he must be 12
Mm.
during this whole thing.
I'm also like I think I had the exact same thoughts as you the first time I read this. Is he seemed to be younger than 12 maybe,
Mm-hmm.
although I think 12 still is
Yeah,
functional,
it's
like,
true.
it still works.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty safe to assume, I guess, that he was 12 first and then 16. And I guess Rean probably we can assume that she's the same age as him, just to make it simple, I guess. Although if anyone's listening and somehow knows their exact ages here, and if you're listening on YouTube where you can comment, please let us know, because it would be nice to have that info.
Exact age stuff.
But yeah, that's all I had on Gugu. Do you have anything more?
I have another thing, but I want to save it for another character's point. So
All right then.
good to go.
All right, so let's move on to Rean. She has a cute little dog, and and she gave Gugu
That's it.
that
That's the
ring.
only redeeming factor. She has a cute little dog.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Moving on to no, but yeah, she has a little dog, and she comes from a very wealthy family. Is like the basic facts, I guess, about her. And as we said earlier, she seems to take a liking to Fushi, but I don't know if that's as much the case at the end of the volume. Like after the time skip, I wonder if she has the same kind of obsession with him.
So real quick about her kind of obsession or her like of Fushi. I think part of it is like, yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a crush because he's cute.
Yeah.
But I also think it may have been something of, because remember how we were saying Fushi was kind of a toddler or a little child in this volume.
Yeah.
Until the end. And I wonder if it's kind of this mentality where sometimes people will want to play with a little kid because they're so adorable, because they don't understand the world. They don't know how to eat or cook or do things.
Or undress themselves.
Undress themselves. That's what I was getting to.
I love her joke there.
Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering, like, is she going that route there, or?
I love her, like, twice in this book. She's like, just kidding. Like, it's so cute.
Oh, she wasn't kidding about the dressing part. But anyway, so that's that. But at the end of the volume, it seems that she might still have some sort of thing, or at least think he's cute. Because the last page, she's looking like she's a little bit blushed in the face, and she's looking excitedly at Fushi. So maybe it's because he was the one that cooked the food. Was him that cooked the? Yeah, it was him that cooked the food.
Right.
Maybe she was just like really excited that he cooked the food. It's like, wow, great job.
Right.
Or maybe she's still a little bit infatuated with him.
I like to think that she, like the basically what you suggested at the beginning there, that it was more like it was interesting, or it was fun when he was kind of like a toddler-ish kind of, or had that kind of mentality. I kind of liked that idea, and then because I felt like during the volume, like after, or I guess during and also after the tent scene between Rean and Gugu, that I think maybe she started to have some kind of interest in him. Potentially.
Although, I mean that's what I'm hoping, and that's kind of where I feel like the story is going.
Right.
But maybe it's like she thinks this guy's cute, but she's actually growing romantic feelings for Gugu.
Exactly. Right. I mean, regardless, I think they're all friends at this point. They're all.
Of course,
close,
yeah. I mean,
almost like family. All like in some way.
Really though, yeah.
And like, because it was really the moment after they leave the tent, and Gugu puts the jar on Rean's head, and they're sitting there on the hill together, kind of in silence, and they're kind of like they're too kind of bashful to kind of look at each other, and it's just kind of that tension is in the air there, like right before Fushi arrives. It's like that's there's something in the air.
No, I totally agree. There's definitely something there, and I hope I really hope it goes far. I was trying not to, harp on this too much, but I really hope it goes somewhere between the. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it would be sad if Gugu's kind of feelings for her go unrequited, but I really don't think that that'll be the case
Hmm.
by the end of it, especially with what's happened between them.
Right. Yeah. It seems
So,
it seems to be looking up right now.
yeah.
I would say for sure. More about Rean. We learned that she ran away from home to live with Fushi and Gugu, or well, and well, the others there.
Oh, that was the other thing. Maybe her kind of attention toward Fushi was also a excuse to be there as she ran away, but also could just have been a perk. It's like, hey, if I run away here, then I get to talk to this cutie. It's great.
Right.
I,
Yeah. I think that's kind of how I read it, but I can see both ways. But yeah, like we learned just how strict her parents are and how overprotective they
mm,
are, and they decide everything for her. We know she loves purple a lot, but she's forced to wear only green clothes because that's her family color and all that.
yeah.
Um, and we learned this thing about the very little scar on her arm. It's like really nothing to worry about. Uh,
What I really like about the kind of, yeah, I guess relationship that Rean and Gugu have is
Hmm.
they both come from different worlds, kind of different societies, but they have their own issues and trials. And I think it shows that
Hmm.
while some people's trials are much worse and much more difficult, depending on their circumstance, not everyone is perfect or has everything exactly that they need. Like it's not complete, utter bliss.
Yeah.
And obviously some people live in luxury. I totally get that. But there's also physical and mental issues that people go through that sometimes we don't quite understand. That because we are in a different situation, we can't truly uh, empathize with it.
Yeah.
So I think that it's interesting to see the different viewpoints. And while I do think that some of the things that Dean were saying were a little silly in the grand scheme of things, I also understood, yeah, she is very kind of trapped
Hmm.
and not able to be the person she wants to be.
Yeah.
And, that's in a way kind of takes away her freedom of choice
It definitely does.
in what the book was or the volume was talking about at one point. I think it was the Beholder who mentioned
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
How he didn't like things taking away the freedom of choice. Yeah, so it's very interesting.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah, and it's really all a matter of perspective, like how you
Yeah.
perceive things as bad or really bad or like stuff like that. But yeah. The last thing I had on Rean is Pioran tells her that Fushi has to become human fast at one point in this
Mm.
book. And I was thinking that maybe, although I'm not entirely sure, like, but maybe Rean starts to maybe suspect that something is up at that point.
Mm.
Although, I mean, because clearly Fushi does act different.
Right.
He is a strange dude, uh, and so it's possible that maybe she starts to expect something. Although obviously, I don't expect her to, put everything together just with that. But like just to have some kind of feeling in the back of her head, like something strange is going on, kind of potentially based on that.
Yeah. That'll be interesting to see, and
Hmm.
and I do think that at least that at the very least the idea of him not being completely human or human at all
Mhm.
was planted there. Yeah.
Right, right. Do you have anything more on her?
Yeah. Just about her character, real quick. She kind of breaks the stereotype of the stuck-up rich girl. I mean, she obviously is from a high class and is spoiled, but at the same time, she's very sweet, very similar to Gugu, very kind,
Hmm.
and I think that it's a nice break from the jerk high society people. A lot of the time stories will pin the person who's from a noble or just a rich family as just terrible people, and I guess the jury's still out on if that actually happens with the Cropp's family.
Right, right.
But I think it's really nice that she's not this terrible person who, looks down on others. I don't know. I really appreciate that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. She's a beautiful character.
I already mentioned this, but just want to reemphasize it. She accepts Gugu for the person he is, and I find that very touching, even though she hasn't seen his face. And I think at this point, even if she sees his face, obviously there'll be a bit of a shock, but I'm sure she will not be repulsed like some of the other people were.
I also have a feeling.
It may be similar to how his Gugu's old boss kind of was like.
Maybe, yeah.
Still accepting. Of course, there is this slight worry that something terrible will happen when that. But especially with this kind of story, but you never know.
Yeah.
But I'm actually a little more worried once she finds out that it was Gugu who was the one that pushed her.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That was kind of teased here. Like, it felt like it was close that Gugu would tell her that, but he ultimately didn't. So yeah, we're definitely waiting eagerly for that to happen.
For sure. I hope he's able to explain himself that he saved her life.
Right.
Yeah, I really hope that comes out eloquently.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Another thing I like about her is when Gugu apologizes after that scene with them at the tent and the tree.
Yeah.
She just is like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, she basically just like, forgets about it and just moves on. That is such a good character to have.
Yeah.
Not to hold grudge or just. I mean, in herself, like she was obviously just forgiving him, but in a very cute way.
Mm-hmm.
So it just emphasizes how good of a person she is, and they both are. So yeah.
Yeah, dude. They're
love it.
They're great for each other, I think.
They really are. Can't wait going forward. I hope. Well, I'm actually worried, but that's okay. Because this is the story. And I can't. I don't know. For some reason, I just don't trust it. I don't trust her.
Well, the only thing I can say is that I'm just excited to talk about the next volume with you.
Yeah.
Because I love that one just as much as this one, if not more. So, anything more on Rean, though?
That's it.
All right, then let's move on to Pioran a little bit. And the first thing I'd like to say about her is that I don't know if you have this on the Crunchyroll thing where you're reading, but there's sometimes some in-between chapter pages in the physical volumes.
Oh.
Do you get?
I don't think I have that.
Not? No?
No.
There is between two of the chapters in this volume. There's a little text. It's basically it looks like it's something that would have been written like in a journal or in Pioran's diary or like something of that sort. Basically like a page out of that, where she explains kind of how she took a piece of the knocker from the first battle in the previous volume. Like, after Fushi had defeated the knocker there, she took a piece of it that was left behind somehow. And she took it back home, and she kind of inspected it, and she kind of explained how it felt and how it looked, and like there was some kind of liquid inside of it that looked like water, and how she cooked it, and she ate it. and and yeah, just a little explanation on that kind of. I don't know if it's like super important, but apparently they are edible. And it like somehow it's somewhat meaty in like how it turned out apparently. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting little side thing.
Well then, knockers on the menu, boys.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure Gugu would make a delicious knocker dish.
Oh, he would. Oh my gosh. Actually, that's funny you bring that up because she mentions in the story, and I wrote this down, that she's going to write down the encounter with the tree thing.
Right.
With the knocker. And I thought, here's what I thought. I said, perhaps she is keeping a record of Fushi's adventure. And it sounds like, no, that's not necessarily the case. Maybe she is, but maybe she's more. Sounds like she's more examining or like studying
Hmm.
the tree thing. But it would be interesting if she was keeping a track of Fushi's growth through
Yeah.
her writings.
Or, like, yeah. That is an interesting idea. The way I interpreted that when she said that line, she said like, "Oh, I'm gonna go take note of that so I don't forget it," or she said something like that. And the way I thought of it then was that she is so old and she's aware that her memory is starting to get a little fuzzy sometimes, so she writes things
Oh,
down in order to not forget about them. Perhaps.
that's fair. I mean, hey, it makes a great story, so
Yeah, dude,
don't
absolutely.
blame her.
Yeah.
Pioran is just she's funny, but she's kind of a terrible person. Both her and Boozman,
Uh huh.
not terrible. Maybe that's wrong. Like she has a kind heart, but personality-wise, she's a bit rude and crass.
Yeah. True.
But
That's
I
true.
think she has what's best in mind for Fushi, and she is wise, as
Yeah.
she proved towards the end of the volume, like when the Cropp's dad was talking about the situation, and she kind of
Mm,
said, "Well, maybe you're not looking at the real problem here," or something like that. She offers some advice there. So
exactly. I love that line. I
respect your
love that
old
line.
people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think she says, or is the fact that you don't think it's a problem the real problem?
Yeah,
I,
that's
I
it.
that's
That's
so
it.
good.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
think he needed to hear that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anything more on Pioran?
No, that's it.
All right, then let's talk about her lover, Boozman, the intellectual.
Why does he have a name?
Yeah, right. The first we see of him is actually pretty early on. You probably noticed it too, but
Yeah.
he's trying to buy seeds from Gugu, but he didn't have any to sell him.
Sorry, dude.
But he is supposedly known throughout the town for doing some illegal stuff,
Yeah.
and well, we do know that he does do some kind of messed up things,
Odd human
experimenting on
experimentations.
Gugu, and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I
he,
was a bit upset about that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, he did. He gave Gugu this extra organ which holds pure alcohol. I don't know, like it was a little bit unclear to me whether that organ produces pure alcohol to a degree or if it only holds alcohol, like that is inserted into it. So I guess I guess it's not super important, but regardless, Gugu can through that organ store alcohol inside of his stomach. So yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Yeah. Why did no one go to find Gugu? Neither him or Pioran did. And I know they kind of explain, like Pioran was kind of like, "Oh, Fushi needs to do it" or something like that. They're just lazy. These
Yeah,
people are so lazy.
didn't they in the flashback when Rean was in the tent there, or when she arrived, there was like a brief little flashback of like just a few panels.
Yes.
Didn't even the old man he said like, "Oh, I'm too lazy." Like I think he even
Yes.
straight up said that.
Yes.
But there was one really nice scene I thought with Boozman where he actually, approached Gugu when Gugu was feeling really down, and he was able to help him kind of get like lift himself up and get back on track again,
Yeah.
which I thought was pretty nice. He had a weird way kind of going about it, but ultimately I think it was a nice gesture.
You're right.
So I think, as you said, like both he and Pioran, they are questionable people, but they're not completely bad people.
I agree. I
So
agree.
I guess that makes them interesting,
Totally. Totally.
and they are family at this point.
Yeah, I guess you could call them Fushi's grandpa and grandma, kind of.
Yeah,
Although,
honestly, I
I
think
don't
so.
know. Yeah.
At least they kind of fill that role. I'd say
Mm.
definitely. Anything more on him?
Uh-uh.
All right, then let's talk a little bit maybe about Shin, Gugu's brother. If we have anything there, he seems to have gotten involved with some shady people.
He joins a fight club.
I guess
I,
maybe.
I thought
I mean,
because
it could be.
it's like
It could
don't
be.
lose the. Don't they say like a don't lose next time or something like that?
Yeah, yeah, they did. So that's a good possibility. That is something like a Fight Club kind of deal.
Or maybe it's gambling. I don't know.
Honestly, yeah, it could be a lot of things. To be fair, uh, either way, it wasn't good for him. Clearly, as we saw later on when Gugu found him, he was looking awful.
Oh yeah. Very thin.
So Yeah, that was terrible.
So, you want to hear a really wild theory
Yeah,
I
please.
had?
Go ahead.
So, Gugu gives him the ring, right?
Uh-huh.
And my thought was maybe he comes back to the story as someone who is able to get back on his feet, which would, I guess, maybe be nice. And I think Gugu wouldn't be upset about it
Mm.
unless something terrible were to happen because of that to his situation. So that would be a nice thing. But then I thought, what if he's able to turn that ring into something very wealthy
Ah.
somehow, and then he gets in with the Crops family, and
Oh.
somehow he gets the arranged marriage with Reem. Now that would be such a hard blow, I
Oh
think.
my
Uh,
God.
right, they're terrible, but the parents did say they already had picked someone out for her to marry,
Mm,
supposedly, as far as I understand. So that I had that theory after I had read the volume the first time, and then
right.
it came back to it, and I saw that I was like, oh, that kind of throws out in the water. But I thought it'd be very spicy if that did happen, and very traumatic,
Oof. Yeah. Yeah, that would be rough.
right? But I do hope that I don't know, like I don't care about Sheen because he's made a bad choice, but at the same time,
Hmm.
it would be nice if he were to get back on his feet
Yeah.
and somehow either be there for Gugu or just maybe just have that choice that Gugu made play some sort of consequence, whether
Right.
good or bad.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. It's just, he really made a really awful choice. Like betraying Gugu like that was absolutely terrible, especially
Hmm.
since they were family.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I'm not excusing him in any sense. I don't want anyone to think that, but he was still in like, or they both were in just in a really terrible situation, without a home,
Right.
without anyone but themselves or each other. And so I guess desperate times does bring out some bad sides in people,
Uh huh.
but it was still, I still don't think it's excusable, the things that he did, abandoning his little brother like that
Right.
and taking all the money that they both earned together. Like
Ah,
not
yeah, that was
okay
so.
at all.
Ugh. No.
Oh well.
No. 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 Yeah.
Is that it on Sheen?
I I wanted to ask if do you think he'll come back into the story after all my theorizing, but I can't really ask you that because you've already read the future volumes, so
Sadly, I do
never
know.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah, but then let's move on to the Beholder. Perhaps I actually already said what I wanted to say about him. So if you have anything on the Beholder, shoot.
Actually, I don't think I do.
Okay. Do you have anything on any other character?
The Crops family, they're stereotypically stuck up, I think, but
Hmm.
they don't seem like nasty people, you know?
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
they're gonna look down upon you too much. E- Especially by the end when they're trying Gugu's food
Mm.
and, kind of just sitting down with everybody. Like they even kind of scold them. It's like, hey, don't treat your elders that way.
Yeah, yeah, and like just the fact that they came there to hang out with the rest of them was,
Right.
yeah, I think shows that they're not terrible, as you said. Yeah.
No. No. So, which was nice to see. Like
Mm.
they're just it's a different world, different society.
Right, right. And they're doing what they believe is the right thing. It
Right.
it it might not be the right thing exactly for Rean, but they have good intentions, I think, at the very least.
Yeah.
Is that it for the characters or
Yeah. That's all I have.
all right. I guess that brings us to the ending of the discussion. Do you have any final predictions or any thoughts regarding the world in general or anything like that? Do you want to discuss, bring up?
Uh, just a couple funny things.
Uh-huh.
Fushi interrupting the silence between Rean and Gugu when they're on near the river or just sitting on that hill, whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was really funny.
It was.
Just how it was drawn. Anyway,
Mm.
but I also love the Gugu when he walks in on Dean's family being in the tower or whatever. He's like, way to impress the family, being drunk. He's like, hey everybody, how's it going? And
Yeah.
It's like, it's definitely winning points there.
Yeah. And actually, another speaking of funny moments, since I guess we're doing that, I guess I don't know if this is funny, but I kind of liked it. Was right after Gugu throws the spear in the head of the Knocker March form.
Mm-hmm.
It picks him up by the leg and holds him upside down, and he says, "Huh?" And the speech bubble is upside down as well. I thought that was really nice. Like a really nice touch. You don't usually see that kind of stuff in comic books or anything.
I wondered why that was.
Yeah.
I guess it was just pure comedic effect.
Yeah. I legitimately turned my book upside down just because I wanted to see it like the right way.
That's how you're supposed to do it. That's what they're trying to tell you.
Right.
So I guess just thinking in terms of the future, like the story.
Yeah.
How is this all going to fall apart? Because it feels the way the story is going is that it just crumbles, and it leaves an impact on Fushi that doesn't usually end on a happy note, or at least a completely happy note. And so I started thinking, because the reason why I say that is obviously Fushi has more growth to do if he wants to be able to combat the Knockers.
Right.
And we know that Gugu's fire was able to take them out pretty well. Now maybe they'll have an ability that's able to combat the fire in the future. Not sure.
Yeah, it kind of seemed a little bit like that when the Beholder kind of said that they're gonna learn from this. They're gonna take measures to improve themselves. Like that definitely seems worrying.
Yeah. So this may kind of throw my theory, or at least the usefulness of it, out the window. But I think just the way she set up Gugu's character and just the ability that he has with this alcohol spewing, fire breathing gecko thing, lizard thing. It seems like that would be the new power that Fushi gets, which would obviously mean, or potentially mean, the death of Gugu.
Right.
So, I mean, on the one hand, that'd be a great addition to Fushi's abilities. On the other hand, I don't want Gugu to die. So,
yeah, right.
I don't. That's what my prediction is that he is going to pass away somehow for some reason.
In the next volume or beyond the next volume, do you think? Just curious.
Well, so this is taking to what you've said in consideration. Since I think you've said 4 was your favorite volume. So I kind of think 4 will be the one.
You think I enjoy tragedy?
A little bit.
Okay. I do. I do enjoy some tragedy.
We've talked a long time, Petter.
We have. You know me.
A little bit, but no, I can't say for sure. And
right.
It would break a bit of my heart because I've fallen in love with this character. I think he's such a great guy.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, you said your favorite character is my favorite character so far. So it would be very depressing if that were to happen. Now, to think positively, I wondered if there was maybe Fushi's able to find a way to replicate this stimulus, this ability to copy another being without Gugu passing away.
Right.
But that is a little bit too optimistic, potentially speaking, and might not be what the Beholder had in mind when he created Fushi. So that's kind of my thoughts about that. So what would lead to Gugu's death if it does happen? Well, actually, before I go to that, another part to this is there's been 4 years, a 4-year time skip.
Yes.
And that also means everyone around the world has aged 4 years. I mean, duh. But that means we haven't seen Perona. And she's 4 years older. I have no idea how old she was back then. Maybe
I think she was 15.
Oh, she was 15.
I
Okay.
think.
I actually was about to say 16, but 15. Okay, that works. So now she's 19. And unless the story takes a huge time leap at some point and Gugu has a long life with Rean as his wife and Fushi sees that until he dies and then he moves onward, that would mean I keep calling Pioran. That's only funny to certain people. Perona would be either dead or an old woman. Which, I mean, good for her to live a long life, I suppose. But also, that would be really upsetting for me. And I would not like her to not ever be in the story again. So it's like, if I want to see Perona again, it's like Gugu's got to die. But I don't want Gugu to die. So
No,
I don't know.
of course.
And I guess that's not necessarily true. You know, Perona could come back to the story somehow, and Gugu can still be around and everything. But Fushi seems pretty determined to live out Gugu's life, however long that may be. So,
Right.
Some of my thoughts on what could lead to tragedy, maybe the people of not Yamato. What's Yamone? No. What the Japanese people? What their name?
Oh God, it's escaping me as well.
Yanome.
Yanome. Yes. Yanome.
Like maybe they find out where Fushi is somehow.
Like Hayase and them.
Yeah. Or maybe Hayase, or maybe some other party, maybe in some new part of the Yanome clan, finds him, and that leads to intense moment for them. Again, we don't know what's happening with the arranged marriage thing.
Right.
That seems like maybe too obvious of a plot thread. And how would that lead to his death? I don't know. So honestly, I'm kind of in the dark in how it all happened, but at the very least, I do think that this moment of, happiness and bliss will not last, and that makes me sad. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll be bittersweet, but if there's any sort of sadness, then I will say I was right. Like, my feelings were right.
Yeah. Now, I think overall, you've given some good thoughts here. I can't really comment on any of it, but I will say I think you've given some good thoughts.
Thank you.
And I am very stoked and excited to talk about the next volume with you next week.
Cool. As am I. As am I.
So yeah, I guess that's all.
That's it. That's the end. This volume, I know I said at the beginning, but this volume was so good.
I'm so happy.
Good.
So happy to hear that, and I'm glad that it lived up to the expectations, because I know that
did.
I kind of lifted it up beforehand, which I don't know if I should have, but I guess it worked out anyway.
And you would even say, like, well, don't get disappointed. I was like, so I was like, well, I don't know, like, he's giving me mixed messages here, but no, it was good. Like, why do I always forget her name?
Perona?
No, the author.
Oh, Oima.
Oima. She has done such a great job in establishing these characters in such a short amount of time.
Right, dude. Yeah.
In one volume, she gets you to care about a whole new cast, basically, besides Fushi.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. And for all I know, it could all fall down in the next volume, and then it moves on to the next. Like, it's... Oh, man. Actually, I kind of... Now that I think about it... sorry, I keep going, but now that I think about it, I kind of hope that we get more of these characters. Because like I said with Perona, I was really upset that seemed to be potentially the last time we see her, or at least maybe not for a long time. So I hope it doesn't become a recurring thing where you only get like 2 volumes of these characters and then we move on.
Right. Yeah, no, I feel you.
Anyway.
Right.
Excited for this next one.
Definitely. So, with that all said, if you enjoy our content, you can follow us on Twitter at Umami Manga. And if you like this episode, please share it around with anyone you think might enjoy it too. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you all next time, where we'll talk about Volume 4. Bye-bye.
See you later.
What I have been thinking about, like, the past several recordings, is that, wow, we made it through without a single shower.
That's true.
I feel like it's
That's
been
true.
several weeks since it happened last time. So
Yeah, you're right.
So it's honestly, I guess we should be happy.
I guess to finish off the last recording in this house,
Right.
one last shower.
Yes, exactly. It has to happen. It's tradition at this point.